Okay, here we are. Herpetological Highlights episode 201. And I'm trying to guess Ben's frog call here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It's a frog?
It's a frog.
Yeah?
Congratulations.
Sounds like a grasshopper.
I believe it's not a grasshopper. Yes, it does have a very sort of insect-like quality to the call, doesn't it? Yeah, I see how you're saying that.
Okay, so I'm looking at what we've got as our paper episode. I think this is going to be a very small, very beautiful frog.
It is both small and it is quite beautiful.
So I think it's going to be a type of dart frog.
Wow.
Bumblebee.
See, now I went looking for dart frog calls and I came across one and then I realised that I think I've previously provided to you a long time ago because all the links had been used and I'm like, yeah, I do kind of remember bringing up potentially a bumblebee dart frog at some point previously. I best do something else.
Oh, really? Okay.
And an alternate future that I didn't decide. But no, it's not. This is Dendrobates Jimmy.
Dendrobates Jimmy.
Yeah.
Dendrobates. Does it have a common name?
Not that I have found.
Okay. Oh, right. Okay.
Lovely little sort of striped tree frog. It's got these lovely dark browny red and white stripes along its side. Quite an elegant little frog. Found in Brazil, I think.
Okay, so we got the Brazil connection to our episode then.
Yeah, I was close. It's a tough little guy living over 800 meters up in hills and mountains. Can deal with a variety of habitats. Seems to be doing all right. Least concern. Cool little frog.
Least concern, but no common name, Ben. How am I supposed to guess a frog with no common name? Dendrobates Jimmy, as if I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Is that Dendrobates Jimmy?
I just couldn't get over. As soon as I saw it was called Jimmy, I was like, all right, I'm in.
Because of Jiminy Cricket, which is what it sounds like a cricket. Maybe that should be its. Maybe that should be its thing. Why is it called Jimmy Eye? Do we know?
I also don't know. No, I'm woefully underprepared with knowledge of this frog, which was almost an impossibility for you to guess.
Can't find anything about why it's called that.
I was really thrown off with my failure to find another like Dendrobates call, which sounded fun.
Yeah, I mean, you did find a Dendrobates, which is good.
Well, Dendrobates.
Oh, Dendrobates. Yeah, is that even? It's not even close, is it?
It begins with dendro, and it's from South America, and they're little, and they live in trees.
It's in Hylidae, though, so it's a different family to the...
It was in Hylidae.
Oh, is it not anymore?
Oh, no, I suppose it would still be in Hylidae. It's not in Hyla anymore.
I think the crucial thing here is it's a small frog, which kind of relates to what we're going to be talking about in the episode. So let's get on to that.
Yep.
So we've got a paper by Parrish and Fischer, published in 2024. Tap dancing frogs. Posterior toe tapping and feeding in Dendrobates tinctorius, published in Ethology. So, the toe tapping. We're talking about tippity toe tapping. Toe tapping of various species of amphibians is this kind of intriguing behavior that's attracted attention both from researchers and from pet owners. So there are various names for it. Some call it toe tapping, some call it twitching, wiggling, trembling. But this curious behavior has been the subject.
I think we'll go with toe tapping.
Yeah, we'll go with toe tapping. This curious behavior is the subject of many YouTube videos, TikToks, and Twitter threads. And recently a publication sort of looked at all the video sharing platforms and compiled a data set of over 200 videos of toe tapping from 63 different frog species. However, the reasons behind this behavior are still kind of poorly understood. And what it is the frogs are tapping their toes. It's literally as it's describing. They're tapping their individual toes quite fast, not to be confused with some other frog behaviors like arm waving. That's a different thing. This is toe tapping. So it's just the toe is tapping on the floor and it's unknown why they do it. You know, there's some idea about what it might be, whether it's something to do with hunting or social communication. Some people thought it might even just be a displacement behavior.
Yeah, just fidgeting.
Yeah, just fidgeting, like essentially just a pointless movement caused by either nervousness or excitement.
Pointless, nonsensical frog wiggling.
Yeah, like if you're bouncing your leg nervously or you're excited, that is a pointless displacement behavior. It's a displacement behavior. Wagging of a tail of a dog is another one, a displacement behavior, although I feel like that has quite an important role in social communication as well, because it's like...
Well, there we go, isn't it? But that's, I think, could be said for other displacement behaviors as well, right? It's reading body language is a form of communication. Whether you're actually putting the effort in to read someone's body language is another question. So,
very good.
I think it'd be hard to pull those two apart.
But we're talking about this toe tapping behavior in the context of a poison frog, the dying poison frog, Dendrobates tinctorius, called the dying poison frog, not because they're dying, because dying as in to put a colour in something, to dye it. They're really beautiful frogs. They're blue generally. They're quite large. They also come in like a whole different array of colour patterns, not just blue. They're sort of blue, black, yellow in various guises. There's loads of different morphs, and these morphs are generally separated by geography, so they come in all different colour patterns, but generally variations on blue, black, and yellow. And the ones we have here are sort of blue. They're like solid blue with darker blue circles on them. Stunning frogs. You find them in the wild in French Guyana, Suriname, and Brazil, so kind of like the northeastern areas of South America.
Pretty close to the frog called frog. Let's say it's pretty close. They're neighbours.
I know, yeah. I just think it was harsh that it doesn't even have a common name, Dendrobates. I've already nearly forgotten it. Jimmy Eye? Yeah.
Jimmy.
It's hard.
Jimmy's frog.
You're having one with no common name next time, I'm telling you. So yeah, they're stunning frogs, leaf litter dwellers. They generally live on the forest floor, and they eat tiny little bugs. The reason they're blue is like a warning coloration, so aposematism, and they are poisonous like other species in the genus Dendrobates. They have a highly toxic poison if you consume them, produce some toxins called pumiliotoxins that the frog uses for self-defense. They're pretty toxic if you to eat them. It causes pain, cramping, and stiffness. Even if you handle them roughly,
it
can go through your skin. Yeah, some photographers were mucking about with these frogs and they had a few symptoms. I think it affects your calcium pump, like a lot of frog and toad toxins, and not good for you. But yeah, we're not talking about their poisons. We're talking about their tippity-toe tapping and why they might do it. And so the authors of this paper basically put together a number of experiments to see what triggers these frogs to toe tap and when it happens most. So they were looking at things like, do they tap more when they're feeding? Does having a friend nearby affect it? Does it matter if the prey is accessible? Does it matter what surface they're on? Etc., etc. Big thorough study. Basically, they set out to work out why they do it and diminish the mystery around this unusual behavior, which has everyone curious. I think particularly because of pet owners having it, it's kind of reached a lot of people and a lot of people are aware of it.
Right. Should we just go through experiment 1, 2, 3 in the order in which they do?
Pat. Makes sense. Yes.
So experiment 1 is very simple. It's just comparing the toe tapping ferocity when the frog is feeding versus when they're not feeding. So they were deploying some little flies for these frogs to consume.
Yeah, these little flies. Unsung heroes of this paper, really. How many countless hordes of flies died in the making of this paper? So yeah, spare a moment's thought for the flies. But the take-home message here, Ben, when you feed them, do they tap more, do they tap less, or do they not tap any differently?
They definitely tap more. I think tenfold more?
Tenfold tappage if you feed them flies. So the flies arrive, the frogs are tappity tapping. So there seems to be a link between feeding and tapping. What was also interesting about that is that if they had their mate with them, literally their mate, who they were like to breed with, their sort of like significant other, if you will, not that frogs have a significant other, but if their friend was nearby, their mating partner, they would also tap more. It would increase the tapping even more.
Right. So non-feeding, lowest amount of tapping. Flies abound, tapping increases. Flies abound with partner nearby, tapping increases even further.
Double tapping. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So there we go. So there's this relationship with feeding. So it does appear to be related to feeding. Then they tested, the next thing after that was whether or not it would affect the tapping if the prey was accessible. So they can see the prey, but they can't get it. How much are they tapping? Compared to they can see the prey and get it. How much are they tapping? And they tapped more when the prey was actually accessible to them. So when they're actually actively eating the prey.
Yeah, this was only had the flies were in with them, but sort of trapped under a petri dish, right? So the frogs had visual cues there, but no way of accessing them.
And that was less tappy than when they could actually get them.
Yeah,
so
right.
The getting of the flies seems to increase the taps.
That's a really interesting finding in my books because it kind of speaks to frog cognition more than it does the tapping in some way. It's like the tapping finding is cool, but it's more the frog's ability to judge access to these flies or not. And it might be a reaction to the sort of vibrations that they're generating potentially, and they're not getting that sort of feedback or something. But I don't know, I just feel like that's really, I'm surprised by that one. Like genuinely surprised by that one.
It does, you're right. It does suggest a bit of cognition because it's like, okay, I'm tapping, but I'm not actually getting anything. Like I'm not getting any food. So it's like, is there like an extra level of excitation that gets reached once they start munching and that really fires up the tapping? Or is it like, this isn't working, so I'm not going to invest the energy to keep tapping?
Or it's preemptively and can just recognize that these flies are inaccessible and therefore put less effort in.
Yeah, it's like, right, I'll tap a bit, but not as much as I would if I was actually getting you. And then finally, maybe not finally, but the next one they did was putting them on different surfaces. The frogs themselves are on different surfaces. Do they tap differentially depending on the surfaces? And I think they had like glass.
Yep. Soil.
Agar
jelly. Yeah.
Or leaves.
This sort of gel. It was something that was meant to be pliable, but consistent and sort of not natural, right? Because soil's got a bit of pliability. Glass has no pliability, but is unnatural. So you want something that's pliable, but also unnatural to sort of fill that, to separate these things out. It's basically another interesting control. And then they also had leaf litter.
Yeah, leaf litter. And between the soil, the gel and the glass, they weren't too tappy, were they? They weren't very tappy.
No, maybe a little bit more for soil, but not significantly so, I don't think.
A bit more so for soil and a little bit of gel, but really glass, not too much tapping. But when it came to leaves, oh boy, let's tappity tap, 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 because tapping those leaves must be nice for those frogs. Maybe there's some like little crinkly feedback that they get and they really like that, but yeah.
Exactly. This is what's interesting is like maybe there's a bit more movement there. Maybe they're getting that sort of, okay, this is going to push the flies to somewhere that's easier to capture or something along those lines that glass, gel and soil simply can't do.
Yeah, something's happening when they tap the leaves, which is very... I don't know what, maybe satisfying, but maybe it feels like something's happening. They like it. It's noisy. Yeah, they tap the soil a lot. Sorry, the leaves a lot. And so, yeah, there's this association between tapping and this, I guess it is a vibrationally responsive surface, isn't it? If you tap leaves, more's going to happen than if you just tap glass. And then finally, they wanted to see if there was a relationship between how much they're tapping and their prey capture success. So did tapping actually increase how many flies they were able to catch? And the answer to that was no, the tapping didn't seem to have an appreciable impact on how many flies they caught. However, what they do say is that this is not a natural environment. There are many, many, many flies. They're artificially dumping out like a load of flies on these frogs. And so it might be that the prey abundance is so artificially high that no amount of toe tapping makes any difference. They just catch. So what they say is it might just be an artifact of their lab methods, the why they didn't increase their capture rate. They're not sure.
Yes, because it did increase their strike rate. So more tapping led to more strikes, but not more capture success.
But which came first, the strike or the tap?
Well, potentially that too. But I was also wondering, their capture success, was that, it was success rate, so it was proportionate to the strikes? So if it was proportionate to the strikes, a lower percentage would still garner you more prey if you were striking more frequently.
I think so.
Basically, this bit, I'm a little bit not entirely convinced the book is closed or even that the lab stuff might be playing on it, because the way they, if I'm reading the methods right as well, which is an ask with my reading comprehension, the way they modeled that relationship didn't take into account the differences in surface. And I do wonder whether that's a pretty important... No, they did have it, didn't they? They did have an interaction.
Yeah.
So they did account for that. So I take it all back. I do just wonder whether the rate of prey capture wasn't impacted, but overall count of prey capture did, because you had an increased strike rate. And it's the sort of relative increase of strike rate to the sort of not increase in success rate that's sort of masking that.
So they tap more, they try to catch more.
Yeah.
I think if you did this on wild frogs in their little patches and you recorded them tapping or not, they're going to be catching more food when they're tapping. But I guess...
I might be misunderstanding something, but it does feel like there might have been a scenario that they were more successful with more taps by virtue of striking more.
But I think in this case that success was probably just so high because it's easy to catch the bugs.
Right, you're just capping out is almost, it's going to get.
You're just surrounded by flies. You can't really miss. So yeah, the jury's still out on that one, whether or not it actually benefits their capture success. But, that might just be a case of they need to do a different type of study on a slightly less sort of controlled environment or a slightly less intense prey situation.
And it does really just sort of show off, number one, that the toe tapping seems to be connected to prey foraging, and two, that it does seem to be super connected to substrate, which opens all these sorts of doors for the actual mechanism and what that toe tapping is doing, potentially sort of spooking stuff out of the leaf litter or something. So yeah, it's really fascinating findings that I think really open the door to a lot more sort of in-depth mechanistic sort of stuff, trying to get at exactly what the frogs are doing and benefiting from via the toe tapping.
Yeah, because we know there's this association between toe tapping and feeding, and we know that they modulate the behavior depending on the sort of social and environmental context.
Yeah, the social stuff too.
Yeah, so there's like a lot to unpick. But I think, like you say, the take home is they're thinking about it, they're tapping, it's got some role to do with hunting. So yeah, there we go. If you're watching your dart frogs at home and they're tapping their toes, in all likelihood, it is because they are hunting. Which probably won't surprise many people, but it's cool to find out and nice to see actually somebody taking the time to model it properly and write a nice paper about it. So
yes,
kudos. Plus, beautiful frogs, nice videos. You could watch the videos. And the tapping's rapid and it is just one toe at a time. It's like a little vibraty toe. I would encourage people who've never seen this behavior to look it up. It's kind of intriguing.
Yeah, really good paper. Really, really, really good paper.
Okay. Any other business for this episode, Ben?
I have no business at the end of this episode.
Are you sure? There wasn't something about skin and frogs?
I'm absolutely positive.
Okay. All right, not to worry. Yeah, okay. Well, I haven't either. Maybe we could just briefly mention that Species of the Bi-Weekly got axed from last time.
Yes.
Yeah, so we had the call last time, so we didn't get a chance to talk about our Species of the Bi-Week, but we did have one prepared. So in the interest of keeping people abreast of new species descriptions, this is a paper by Phung Nguyen, Ninh Nguyen, Bernandez, Lei, Ziegler, and Nguyen, published in 2023. Southbound, the southernmost record of Tylototriton from the Central Highlands of Vietnam, represents a new species, published in ZooKeys. So, we have a new species. It's a new species of salamander. I guess you could say newt. And it's from Vietnam.
Lumpy newt.
Very lumpy. So yeah, genus Tylotriton. I mean, let's just talk about what it looks like. It looks absolutely bonkers.
I mean, we have to.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful little newt. They've called it Tylotriton goklinensis because it's from I'm so sorry for my pronunciation, Ngoc Linh Mountains in the Central Highlands of Vietnam. So they're calling it the Ngoc Linh crocodile newt. But yeah, I mean, look at it. It's like very warty. It's jet black, except for an incredibly bright orange head and a really bright orange vertebral stripe and big bright orange blobs all down the back. But the thing about this newt is that its patterns aren't just patterns. They're actually physical structures which are raised from the body. Everything orange is a lump, basically.
Orange lumps in perfect lines down each side of its body. It's outrageous.
It looks pretty crazy, and its tail is just this jet black little... It looks strange. They don't quite look real. They almost look like they're made of plasticine. They're quite chubby and quite squat as well.
They look like they're made out of wine gums.
Extremely unusual looking thing. And they are a highland species. The likelihood is they're probably from this very small type locality. And because of the fact they're bright orange and they look totally cool, they may be under threat from collectors.
They are already covered by CITES though, because the genus they belong to.
Perfect.
Which is a little bit of respite on that front. Yeah, I'm not sure what sort of category under CITES. CITES is a convention on international trade in endangered species. So they should be instantly protected. The authors are highlighting and they're likely endangered because of that limited range and the sort of ongoing sort of forest degradation and threat from collectors and things. But there should be some level of protection initially for them.
And presumably these things have got protection in terms of poison. They look super poisonous. Crocodile newts, they call this group. But yeah, those bright orange colours, they look like they got some glands on the back of those heads.
Yeah.
Making some crazy looking poison. 8th Tylotriton described from Vietnam. and the southernmost distributional record for the whole genus in Asia. So there you go, Tylototriton, southernmost species. But yeah, I would say certainly Google it, Tylototriton gauchlinensis. Yeah, really nice, brand new species. So yeah, welcome to science, creature. I haven't got anything else beyond that in terms of any other business, mate.
Okay, excellent. We're all set then.
If people want to get in touch with us, they can. herphighlights@gmail.com. If you want to get in touch with us to let us know if we, give us a correction, ask us a question. If you want to become our Patreon, you can at patreon.com/herphighlights. Best way to support the podcast. Thanks, as always, to all our patrons. You are the best.
Big thank you, yeah.
And we will catch you next time. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening.